Want to avoid a C-section to recover faster? By the end of this video, you will know 9 concrete strategies to have a healthy vaginal birth without trauma or pelvic floor damage, so you can feel strong in your postpartum body and be the active mom you want to be. Take it from our client Amber, who had a traumatic first birth that ended up in an emergency C-section and long recovery. During her second pregnancy, Amber followed her approach and had a beautiful vaginal birth and felt strong in her body in less than 3 months postpartum, which allowed her to take care of her family in a confident way. If you're an active mom-to-be and you're serious about avoiding a C-section, we would love to help, and there's a link below if you'd like to chat with me directly so we can best guide you through this process. So my first tip to avoid a C-section is to assess pelvic floor tightness in early pregnancy. If you didn't know yet, your baby will have to go through your pelvic floor muscles during birth. And like any other muscle in your body, these muscles can be tight. And when that's the case, it can impact your ability to give birth vaginally. That's why pelvic floor tightness is one of the first things I recommend to assess in early pregnancy, because we want to have plenty of time to address it before you give birth. There's a video in the description below if you want to test if you have a tight pelvic floor. Tip number 2 is partner support. Another crucial element to have a successful vaginal birth is for your partner to feel hyper confident in supporting you through labor and delivery. For example, your partner should know a few pain management techniques to help you cope during your contractions. This way you don't go through this alone. And your partner should also have some, basic knowledge about birth so they can advocate for you when decisions need to be made and not be completely clueless about it all. I remember one of our clients in our program who said that during her first birth, her partner was literally just sitting in the corner of the room, completely paralyzed because he had no idea how to help her and felt so helpless. And she ended up having a C-section for this first birth. And the second time around, they applied the techniques learned in our program, and they ended up having this amazing vaginal birth experience where they both felt so empowered and, working together as a team. And they actually just had their third baby last year. They reused the techniques from our program because they found them so helpful during their second labor. And they ended up having another beautiful vaginal birth experience. So this just goes to show that, involving your partner in your learning journey during pregnancy is so important. And if you're not sure where to start from and you're feeling a little bit lost as to what kind of support you might need, there is a link below to chat with me directly so we can discuss your needs and guide you through this process as best we can. Tip number 3 is stretch your pelvic floor before birth. Around 34 weeks of pregnancy, I highly recommend starting a pelvic floor stretch to prepare your muscles for delivery so they are in the best possible position for a vaginal birth. It literally takes 10 minutes a day, and it's hands down the number 1 thing I recommend to every single client of mine, first-time moms or not. Not only it makes mamas feel mentally confident in giving birth vaginally, but it also reduces the risk of severe tearing from birth. So who doesn't want that, right? I will drop the link in the description below if you'd like to learn how to do the perineal stretch and have all the instructions on hand. Tip number 4 is get pelvic health birth education. Most prenatal classes out there unfortunately don't teach about the pelvis and pelvic floor and how they impact the birthing process. If you look at birth from a physiological perspective, your pelvis will need to open in order for your baby to move down, and then in the pushing stage, your pelvic floor will need to release and stretch while your baby is coming out. And there's so many things you can do to help this process, like using different birth positions, pushing techniques, pelvic floor relaxation tools, and so on. I will link my playlist Prepare for Labor down below if you'd like to learn more about the different techniques you can use to make this process happen in a smoother way. Tip number 5 is staying active during pregnancy. Giving birth is like running a marathon, and I'm not even exaggerating here. I ran a marathon years ago, and I actually found it easier than giving birth. No kidding. And I know staying active in pregnancy is easier said than done because pregnancy symptoms can get in the way of it, right? But from a physical standpoint, you will need strong legs to hold positions for a long time in labor and change positions and get into weird positions, etc. And you don't know how long your labor is going to be, right? So the fitter you are and the more likely you will be able to sustain this intense work for a long time if your labor ends up being long. If I can share my own story here, my labor lasted 53 hours from start to finish, and the only reason why I made it to the finish line and was able to push my baby out after such a long time in labor is because I was fit. Otherwise, I would have got a C-section way before I started pushing. So really making sure that you keep your legs strong and your body mobile throughout pregnancy is key. Also, addressing any symptom that might get in the way of staying active, like back or pelvic pain. And I've got a playlist to address pain symptoms in pregnancy if that's your case, so you can look in the description below if you want to check it out. Tip number 6 is get off your back. I know a lot of people still think that moms should be on their back when they give birth because that's what we see in movies, right? But actually, giving birth on your back is the worst position for so many reasons. Just at a physiological level, look at the shape of your sacrum bone here. Can you see that if you're laying on your back, your sacrum will be anchored in the bed, and that kind of curve shape that the sacrum has will mean that your baby has to climb up the hill of your sacrum in order to get out. It's like putting the ketchup bottle sideways before trying to squeeze it out. Makes no sense, right? I made a video where I go in depth about this specific topic, and I will link it in the description below if you want to dive deeper into that subject. Tip number 7 is know your environment. Knowing exactly what kind of material and options are available to you in the environment where you're planning on giving birth is also super important. For example, if you really want to use a birth ball during your labor, and you show up at the hospital and they don't have some, or they're all being used by other moms, then it can really affect your mindset in a negative way, right? So I highly recommend having that discussion ahead of time with your team and ask what is available to you in the delivery room. Birth pool, birthing balls, TENS machines, shower, etc. So really thinking of all the things you may want to use and knowing what's available, what's allowed, and what you need to provide yourself will just help you stay grounded and keep a positive mindset. Tip number 8 is stay open-minded about your birth plan. You probably heard from people that birth rarely goes according to plan, and I fully agree with this. But instead of not making a plan at all or having a super firm plan, I think what can be more helpful is to have a flexible birth plan. What I mean by that is if plan A does not work, let's have a plan B, C, and D and remain open to our options depending on what is going on. For example, I had in my birth plan that I would prefer not being offered an epidural if my labor was natural, but I was open to it if I was going to be induced. I also didn't want to be coached to push unless I needed help, and I ended up needing help because I had the epidural and couldn't feel my contractions very well. So that's what I mean by keeping an open mind. You can have preferences or birth wishes, but staying open about them. You may have like non-negotiable wishes and other wishes with more wiggle room, if that makes sense. I've seen moms needing an emergency C-section because they were so stubborn on the idea of having a natural birth, whatever that means, and they refused all medical interventions for pain management. And they ended up being in so much pain that they could not relax, their cervix did not dilate, and they never made it to the pushing stage, therefore had a C-section. So who knows what would have happened if they had accepted some medical support for their pain. Maybe they would have been able to relax and dilate and have a vaginal birth, which was their first wish, right? Again, all we can do is speculate, but I'm just saying stay open-minded with your birth plan. Your birth plan should offer you options, not limit your options. And having a plan that is too set in stone can lead to disappointment or feeling like you failed your birth, which is not a great feeling to have. And tip number 9 is be prepared for the worst case scenario. Now, I know if you clicked on this video, it's because you don't want to have a C-section, and I can totally appreciate that because I did not want one either. But I think since we never know what can happen, it's important for you to know what a C-section surgery is and what to expect just in case. Because I can guarantee that it's going to be worse going through it if you have zero knowledge about it beforehand. It's like someone going camping and really want it to be sunny and warm, so they don't pack any rain clothes before leaving. Sure, if it's sunny while they're camping, good for them, they will have a great time. But if it starts raining for days, they will be quite miserable and stuck inside their tent, not knowing what to do. Whereas the person who packed their rain clothes, just in case, will still be disappointed if it's raining, but at least they will be prepared and will better adapt to the situation, you know, like maybe go outside even if it's not ideal. And they won't be stuck in their tent, you know what I mean? So I think it's important for you to pack your rain gear just in case, meaning be prepared for a C-section scenario and have some basic knowledge about it. This is something we teach our clients in our program, is to try and not have set expectations about their birth and be prepared for different scenarios. This way they don't feel as disappointed and out of control if things don't go the way they expected. So anyways, if you feel like I'm speeding your language here and your goal is to prepare for a healthy vaginal birth and a smooth recovery while keeping your options open, this is what we do and we'd love to help. All you have to do is to click the link below to chat directly with me. Also, make sure you watch this video next to find out if you have a tight pelvic floor before it's too late. Thanks for watching.